Stress is not always an enemy. It can be a teacher, a warning sign, a push toward growth. But the moment we hand it the steering wheel of our thoughts, it becomes a tyrant that sits on the throne of our emotions. Stress was meant to remind us of responsibility, not rob us of sanity. It was meant to alert us, not enslave us. There is a kind of stress that pushes you to study harder, work smarter, make better choices, and stretch your potential. That kind of stress shapes you. But when we let stress become our master, it reshapes us into someone we were never meant to be. Most stress doesn't begin outside of us. It begins inside our interpretation. Two people can face the same problem, and one grows stronger while the other collapses. It's not because one is weaker. It's because stress whispers differently in each ear. Stress starts to dominate when we begin to believe the lie that we are not enough, not strong enough, not prepared enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. Anxiety builds its kingdom on the soil of not enough. It rules by fear, feeding us scenarios that haven't happened, outcomes that may never come, and pressures we cannot carry. When stress becomes your master, it doesn't just affect your thought. It affects your posture, your breath, your relationships, your sleep, and even your hope. You start waking up already tired, because stress taught your mind to race before your body even rises. You begin reacting instead of responding, because stress turned your emotions into alarms instead of instruments. You withdraw from peace because anxiety convinced you that peace is too far from reach. But hear this truth clearly. Asterisk, asterisk, you were never designed to be ruled by stress. Asterisk, asterisk, stress can visit, but it should never live in you. It can knock on the door, but don't let it unpack its luggage and move into your heart. When stress becomes a master, it speaks louder than clarity, purpose, and inner wisdom. It drowns out solutions. It magnifies problems. It exaggerates deadlines. It turns small inconveniences into big battles. It causes you to fight things that don't even exist, fighting futures that haven't happened, conversations no one said, outcomes that live only in your imagination. Stress becomes a master when you mistake being busy for being productive, when you mistake constant movement for progress, when your schedule becomes packed, but your soul becomes empty. Many people think stress is the price of success, but the truth is deeper. Unmanaged stress is the price of forgetting who you are and why you're here. When you forget your identity, you try to earn worth by doing more, running faster, pleasing harder. That's when stress wins, not because it is powerful, but because you surrendered authority. Stress should serve you, not own you. Let it push you, but don't let it define you. Let it sharpen your focus, not blur your peace. The moment you recognize that stress is a signal, not a sentence, you start taking back control. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop panicking and start planning. You stop letting fear shout and start letting wisdom speak. You cannot choose whether stress knocks, but you can choose who answers. And when you answer with calm purpose, with identity, with inner strength, stress bows instead of rules. Make it your servant, your teacher, your reminder, not your master. Comparison is one of the most disguised thieves of peace. It doesn't break down the door with noise. It slips in silently through our eyes and settles in our hearts. We scroll through someone else's life, someone else's victories, someone else's highlight moments, and suddenly the blessings we once appreciated feel too small. The joy that was enough yesterday no longer satisfies today. We start to measure our growth using someone else's path, and without realizing it, we begin to suffocate under unrealistic expectations we were never meant to carry. Anxiety often doesn't come from doing too little. It comes from believing you've done less than someone else. You look at their achievements and feel delayed. You see their gifts and question your own. You compare the chapter they're celebrating to the chapter you're still struggling through, forgetting that stories are written one page at a time, not all at once. Comparison blinds you to your journey, and when you can't see your journey, you panic at your pace. You start rushing, forcing outcomes, ignoring the process that was meant to shape you. Anxiety thrives when patience dies. What we fail to realize is that every person is built for a different assignment. Grace works differently for each of us. Timing has its own rhythm for each life. You cannot copy someone else's results because you don't carry their calling. You don't know their battles, their sacrifices, or their tears. You don't know what they walked through to stand where they stand. Yet we compare our private struggles to someone else's public celebration. And that comparison plants seeds of insecurity, impatience, envy, and self-doubt. Those seeds grow into anxiety, causing a person to run faster but feel emptier, to do more but feel less fulfilled. Comparison makes you chase applause instead of purpose. It turns progress into competition. It replaces growth with pressure. You start working to be seen instead of working to become who you're meant to be. And that pressure is heavy, exhausting, and never satisfied. No matter how high you climb, comparison will always point to someone who climbed higher. No matter how much you achieve, it will always show someone who achieved more. Anxiety grows when your value depends on outperforming others instead of becoming your best self. Peace begins when you accept that you are not behind, you're on your path. You are not late, you're moving in your own timing. You are not less, you are different, and different was never meant to be compared. The flower that blooms in spring is not better than the flower that blooms in summer. Each blooms when its season arrives. No season is superior, they are simply appointed. When you embrace your unique journey, stress begins to loosen its grip. Anxiety begins to lose its voice. You stop rushing where you aren't meant to be and begin growing where you are. You stop competing for a life that doesn't belong to you and start building the life that does. You begin to see blessings you once overlooked, opportunities you once ignored, and strengths you once doubted. The moment you stop comparing, your peace begins to return home, because peace lives where authenticity lives. You are not here to match anyone. You are here to fulfill what was specifically placed in you. Comparison steals energy that could build your destiny. Calm begins when you release the need to measure yourself against others and choose to become the best version of who you were designed to be. You're carrying weight that doesn't belong to you, and the burden is silently breaking you. Many of the pressures suffocating your mind aren't even your responsibilities, they're expectations, opinions, and demands that others placed on your shoulders. You weren't meant to solve problems that don't belong to your purpose. Yet you carry the fear of disappointing people who don't even contribute to your peace. You carry the anxiety of meeting standards that were never designed for your destiny. You carry the guilt of saying no, as if rejection is a form of failure rather than a protection of sanity. And over time, you become exhausted without understanding why. It's because you're lifting what wasn't assigned to you. You take on the pressure to please, to prove, to perform, to satisfy, to impress, to keep the room together, to keep situations calm, to fight battles that aren't yours. You bear emotional loads from people who don't carry you when you're broken. You bend so others stand. You sacrifice so others stay comfortable. You silence your own needs so others never feel inconvenience. But every soul has a limit, every heart has a capacity, and every mind has a breaking point. Anxiety grows strongest in a life that refuses to set boundaries. Stress multiplies when you don't know when to step back. Peace disappears when you forget that you are not responsible for how everyone else feels, reacts, or chooses their path. You can care, support, encourage, and love, but you can't live someone else's life for them. You're not here to manage their emotions or to edit your character so they feel secure. That's a burden too heavy to carry. Your job is not to keep the world happy. Your job is to stay aligned, purposeful, and whole. Anything else steals oxygen from your own future. Many people drown not because their life is full of storms, but because they keep jumping into storms that belong to other people. They try to rescue everyone, carry everyone, fix everyone, change everyone, and anxiety becomes their reward. You can offer wisdom, but you can't force growth. You can encourage someone's progress, but you can't carry their responsibility. You can walk beside them, but you can't walk for them. When you try to do their part, you neglect your own. Some of the fear you feel isn't yours. Some of the pressure you wake up with doesn't belong in your spirit. Some of the stress in your mind was borrowed from someone else's lack of discipline, someone else's choices, someone else's expectations. It is not strength to carry what drains you. Strength is knowing what to release. You think holding everything proves your love, loyalty, or commitment. But holding too much only proves you're human and you're tired. Letting go is not abandoning anyone. It is protecting your purpose. Saying no is not rejection. It is direction. You're not required to sacrifice your peace to keep others comfortable. The moment you return the weight that isn't yours, you begin to breathe again. You begin to think clearly again. You begin to feel your life again. Your growth needs room and your sanity needs space. Release what doesn't belong to you. You weren't created to collapse under the pressure of someone else's load. You are here to walk your journey, not to drag every burden you meet along the way. Your mind is a battlefield, and the battle is fought long before anything happens in your reality, before stress shows in your body, before anxiety alters your mood, before fear shapes your decisions. The struggle begins inside your thoughts. If you win there, you win everywhere. But if you lose the war in your mind, even the smallest problem becomes a heavy mountain. A simple task feels impossible. A minor inconvenience becomes a crisis. And the unknown future turns into a threat instead of an adventure. Anxiety doesn't start with a situation. It starts with a story we tell ourselves about the situation. The mind creates what it consistently meditates on. If you feed it fear, it produces panic. If you feed it doubt, it produces hesitation. If you feed it negativity, it produces stress. But if you feed it truth, discipline, faith, and wisdom, it produces clarity, strength, and stability. The battlefield of the mind decides whether you break or become stronger. Stress becomes overwhelming when your thoughts are left unattended. like an unguarded gate inviting anything to walk in. When you don't filter what you allow in your mind, anxiety takes advantage of every open door. It enters disguised as overthinking. It sits quietly as what if. It grows louder as I can't. And it becomes destructive as I'm not enough. Then your mind starts predicting worst-case scenarios, replaying past wounds, imagining future failures, and magnifying small problems into impossible burdens. That is how a battlefield works. If you don't take charge, the enemy takes command. But inner peace is built through discipline. You must direct your thoughts, not just observe them. You must challenge the lies your mind whispers. You must replace emotional reactions with conscious responses. Strength doesn't come from ignoring fear, but from refusing to let fear lead. You must look at stress and say, "You're allowed to warn me, but you're not allowed to control me." You must tell anxiety, "You're a signal, not a prophecy." The mind is powerful when you train it, but destructive when you leave it wild. Many people try to solve emotional problems with physical effort. They think working harder will calm their anxiety. They believe success will erase stress. They think achieving more will silence fear. But external activity can't fix inner chaos. You can change your environment, but if your thoughts are still captive, peace won't stay. You can accomplish your goals, but if your mind is still filled with worry, joy won't last. Victory isn't earned outside until it is established inside. Winning in the mind requires repetition and intention. You don't overcome stress once. You practice peace daily. You don't eliminate fear forever. You face it again and again, becoming stronger each time. You don't silence doubt by ignoring it. You silence it by proving it wrong through consistent action. The mind learns by routine, grows by truth, and stabilizes by focus. When you decide to think differently, everything in your life begins to shift. Your energy changes, your relationships change, your habits change, and your direction becomes clearer. You stop reacting to life and start leading your life. You begin responding with purpose instead of panic. The battlefield remains, but now you're the one in authority. If you win inside, no challenge outside can break you. Your peace becomes your armor. Your perspective becomes your strategy. And your thoughts become your weapons. The mind fights daily, but it also chooses daily. And the greatest victory is choosing what deserves to live in your thoughts and what must be cast out. When your mind is disciplined, anxiety loses its power. When your thoughts are aligned, stress bows. Because when you win in the mind, you win everywhere. Disconnected from purpose, a person can be fully alive on the outside and completely lost on the inside. You can wake up every morning, go to work, take care of responsibilities, and still feel incomplete, anxious, or restless. When you don't know why you're here, you end up chasing anything that promises meaning, and every setback feels like an attack rather than a lesson. Without purpose, life becomes reaction instead of direction. You respond to pressures, follow expectations, and imitate success stories that don't belong to you. That lack of inner direction creates anxiety because you're moving, but you're not becoming. Purpose is not just a goal, it's an anchor. When you know your purpose, challenges don't shake you as easily. You understand that storms are part of the journey, not proof that you're on the wrong path. But when you are disconnected from why you exist, every obstacle feels personal. You start to believe life is against you. You worry about every delay, you fear every closed door, You panic when things don't go according to your plan. Anxiety grows when you live without meaning, because your heart has nothing steady to hold on to. Without purpose, pressure becomes unbearable. You will feel the need to prove yourself to others. You work not out of passion, but out of desperation. You chase validation from those who never cared enough to understand you. You try to perform for applause instead of walking in alignment. Purpose removes the need to impress when you walk in your calling. Your actions speak louder than your approval ratings. But when purpose is missing, anxiety is never quiet. It whispers that you're behind, that you're failing, that you're not enough, even when you're trying your hardest. Purpose gives stress a direction. With purpose, even hard work feels valuable. With purpose, sacrifice becomes meaningful, persistence feels worthwhile, and growth becomes exciting. When you are connected to your calling, you can endure pressure without being crushed by it. But when you are disconnected, every responsibility feels heavy, every step feels confusing, and every day feels repetitive. You start asking, is this all there is? Because your soul knows there's more, but your life isn't aligned with it. Many people aren't anxious because they're weak, they're anxious because they're misplaced. They're trying to fit into environments that don't honor who they are. They're following paths that don't nourish their growth. They're saying yes to what drains them and saying no to what builds them. When your actions don't match your identity, anxiety fills the gap. You become busy but not fulfilled, productive but not progressing, active but not advancing. Movement without purpose is the fastest road to exhaustion. Discovering purpose doesn't always start with clarity, but it always starts with honesty. You must ask yourself, what brings me life? What values do I stand for? What talents can serve others? What future do I dream about when no one is watching? Purpose doesn't always shout. It often whispers. It's a pull, a conviction, a quiet direction that feels right even when it doesn't look easy. And when you follow that inner guidance, peace begins to return. Not because life gets easier, but because your soul feels aligned. Purpose is not found in perfection. It's found in authenticity. When you embrace who you are meant to be, stress becomes manageable because it's shaping you into something meaningful. Anxiety loses its voice because your journey finally has intention. You stop panicking over delays and start trusting the timing. You stop chasing every opportunity and start choosing the right ones. Life stops being a competition and becomes a mission. When you reconnect with your purpose, you reconnect with your peace. And when peace and purpose walk together, anxiety has nowhere to live. Peace is not something you stumble upon or simply pray into existence. Peace is something you build. It doesn't just arrive at your doorstep fully formed. It is constructed, piece by piece, decision by decision, boundary by boundary. It's built in what you choose to embrace and what you choose to release. Peace is formed in what you say yes to and what you refuse to carry. Many people are waiting for peace to show up like a miracle, while they continue to make choices that invite chaos. Peace is not found by accident, it is created with intention. Too often, we treat peace like a reward instead of a responsibility. We believe that when life gets easier, we'll finally rest. When relationships become smoother, we'll finally breathe. When everything falls into place, then we'll finally relax. But peace doesn't come when circumstances change. It comes when we change how we respond to circumstances. If you wait for life to be perfect before you choose inner calm, you'll spend your entire life waiting. Peace is built when you decide to stop letting every disruption become a distraction and every conflict become a crisis. Peace begins with boundaries. You cannot live with peace if everyone has access to your energy, if every voice gets to shape your thoughts, if every demand controls your time. Some people don't bring chaos into your life. You invite it by giving them more space than they should have. Peace requires protecting your emotional, mental, and spiritual territory. You must decide who gets proximity and who only gets distance. You must decide what deserves your response and what deserves your silence. You cannot be at peace if you keep saying yes to what drains you. Peace is also built through courage, the courage to let go of what is no longer aligned with who you are becoming. Some environments, habits, and relationships are too loud for your peace to breathe. You can't keep everything and expect stillness. You can't hold on to the familiar and expect growth. Letting go is not losing, it's making room. Peace requires pruning. It requires stepping away from what disrupts your direction, even if it once felt comfortable. Peace demands that you stop fighting battles you've already outgrown, and peace is built through discipline. Just like the mind needs routine to be strong, the heart needs routine to be calm. Peace grows in what you practice daily: stillness, gratitude, honesty, reflection, prayer, deep breathing, mindful action. Stress gets weaker when you train your mind to pause before reacting, to observe before assuming, to think before panicking. Peace grows when you choose patience over pressure, clarity over hurry, truth over fear. You don't eliminate anxiety with one revelation, you quiet it through consistent habits. Peace is also built by where you place your faith. When you trust that your life has direction, that timing has purpose, that delays are not denials, and that you don't need to control everything to grow, you stop living in panic. Anxiety is loud in the life of someone who tries to control what they were meant only to walk through. Peace arrives when you stop forcing outcomes and start trusting the process. When you believe every step has meaning, your heart stops rushing toward what isn't ready yet. Peace is a structure, a lifestyle, a foundation. It's a slow construction built through wise choices, courageous boundaries, intentional habits, and spiritual trust. It is not the absence of stress. It is the strength to face stress without breaking. It is not the absence of problems. It is the wisdom to respond without losing yourself. Peace doesn't wait for life to calm down. Peace is the calm you bring into life. And once you build it, anxiety loses its home, because peace becomes the house your soul refuses to leave.